Welcome to the Herald's Horn. On this episode, we have Dan and I chopping it up on a variety of topics. Less topics than last week, luckily. We've got Donato Giancola separating himself from Wizards of the Coast. Why did he do that? What do we think about that? And what is our favorite art from Donato? Of course, we also have to talk about the Marvel Secret Lair. What went on there? Why has Wizards abandoned the print-to-demand model? What do we think about that? I heard an argument that I thought finally made sense, so I talk about that a little bit. And then also we've got a few other things we discuss. You know how it is. After the break, I am joined by the one and only Bolus Master himself, Mike Carosa, stand-up comedian, host of the Am I the Bullcast podcast, which also has, well, it is the associated podcast for a long-standing article series, but it's a great interview. You're gonna love it. Let's get into the episode. Thank you. Hello, it's time for the Herald's Horn. My name is Cal Jones, and today I am joined by Dan, who is wearing a beautiful maroon shirt. Hello,
Thank
Dan.
You. My high school colors, maroon and gray.
Maroon and gray?
Yeah.
Let's dox your local high school right now.
I just found out today that someone from my hometown was there on January 6th, which is kind of fun.
All right, let's run the theme song.
Yep.
Bum 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 bum.
I was thinking about doing that at some point during the episode earlier. I was making myself laugh.
Well, welcome back, everybody. It is time for us to discuss all the things that have gone on, not in the world of American politics, but instead in the world of Magic the Gathering politics. No, not really. Let's jump right into the news. Our first news topic of this episode: Wizards' future for their Secret Lair reprint policy has become a little bit unclear. If you remember way back when, Wizards caused a bunch of concern from people when they first started doing these mechanically unique universes beyond Secret Lairs. The most notable first one being The Walking Dead, which of course set off this whole kerfuffle, blah, blah, blah. This upset a lot of people. And then at that time, way back when, Wizards promised that we would get in-universe reprints of mechanically unique Secret Lair cards, kind of like eventually. And since then, we've gotten the likes of in-universe, or as people have liked to have called them, let's see, it was like universe...
Universes Within, I think people call
Yeah,
it.
Universes Within. I thought it was a more clever name than that.
No, not really.
Oh, okay. Since then, we have gotten in-universe reprints of the Street Fighter characters and the Walking Dead characters, and even finally, I think the Stranger Things cards. The Walking Dead ones took forever. The Stranger Things ones were pretty quick.
Yeah, in comparison. I mean, the Walking Dead ones, that was like a matter of like 3 or 4 years, wasn't it? It was like a really long time.
Yeah, I think it was like... Mainly, they just had to find a spot to shove them in way after the fact, because I don't think they really had a plan to reprint them until people gave them a lot of pressure.
Originally, I believe that was the idea, was that they were going to be forever mechanically unique to that one specific, Secret Lair, and everyone was like, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm. Because they want to make money, and they reprint it by doing another Secret Lair. Is this anything?
Wizards was very much like, oops, did we do that? Sorry, I won't do it again unless you like it.
These cards were originally reprinted on the list in set boosters, the list being a big list of cards that were curated by Wizards for every set that had a relatively small chance of appearing in one of your card slots in set boosters. So that's where they originally put these reprints. Someone this week reached out to Mark Rosewater on his good old Blogatog Tumblr blog and asked, hey, Mark, what's the plan with these? We haven't really seen them in a while. And also, the mechanically unique Secret Lairs have really been accelerating as of late, which is true. We've seen quite a few of them at this point, and it doesn't really seem like they are planning on slowing them down either. It seems like something that is a little bit here to stay, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at things like trying to push the demand of like your new Secret Lair with your crossover IP, like of course you want to make it a new exciting Magic card rather than I don't know. I guess you can
reprint or whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, you can't reprint Mana Crypt anymore. You can
some of the reprint
really nice
ones has worked out. Some of them have not.
Yeah.
So someone reached out and asked Mark about it, and he said, "Yeah, not oops, but our original plan for them was we were going to make universe be within versions. They were going to appear on the list, and the list appears in set boosters. Well, the list and set boosters both don't exist anymore." So we don't technically have a home for these things anymore, and that's something we're working on figuring out. He pretty much reaffirmed that they want people to have access to mechanically unique cards that are currently only available in Secret Lairs. Eventually. We're going to get there eventually. The kicker is that they don't exactly know how. They don't have like a one-size-fits-all solution anymore. They don't really have a good spot to fit them in the product line per se. And so there's not going to be a single way for them to do this. They basically said they're going to figure out a solution that does not require you logging onto a Wizards website and purchasing the individual product for each of these mechanically unique Secret Lairs. And they're intending to make sure that a version of each mechanical card is made available eventually. And big news that I think disappointed some people, for understandable reasons. They rolled back. The big news here is really that they rolled back the promise that there will always be universes within. He was pretty much just like, yes, these cards will be available outside of Secret Lairs. We cannot guarantee anymore that they will have a universes within version. I think that's the part that's kind of disappointing to me. We talked a lot on the last episode about how the lore and worlds of Magic the Gathering altogether kind of have a magic of their own, and being able to get cards that exist within that universe, within that shared lore, is, I think, something that was pretty cool. And I think it was one of those things that like Wizards didn't have to do, but it was kind of like free, not free, because, they had to pay for art, blah, 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 fit them somewhere. It felt like something that was a pretty cheap and easy way for Wizards of the Coast to bat back some of the negativity around Universes Beyond, mechanically unique Secret Lairs, etc., etc. And it feels bad for them to now essentially be abandoning that. Dan? Your thoughts?
I really thought you froze for a second.
No.
Yeah, it seems like it'll make it more difficult to reprint these things, which I think is probably the biggest downfall of it. Having universes within versions of these things, I don't know. I guess like when we saw the Rick universes within card, that was a character that was tied to Innistrad, one I hadn't heard of before. But I wonder if they're going to be looking at things like that as in they need a really flavorful place to put these cards now, that they can't necessarily just do a universes within tie-in. Like, do we need to see some sort of like Marvel Universes Beyond remastered or something like that? Or I'm interested to see how they'll tackle the problem. It seems like it does create more problems than not to do it this way, but I don't know. I'm sure it's in their best interest as a company overall. I mean, these cards are always just like the ability to reprint them is just the ability to make another chase product. So yeah, I mean, they're certainly going to be looking for creative solutions to this, but it does seem like it'll make it more difficult. So yeah.
Yeah. And I get why. I mean, I think the kicker is here. They very well could maybe figure out relatively soon a method for this that does kind of work for all of them. Like, I think the tough part is, I think for understandable reasons, Wizards shifted away from the list, which introduced a ton of really random cards into like every single set. And that was kind of confusing for people in a lot of ways, together with there being 3 entirely different product lines, which gave them like some wiggle room on where they could put completely random stuff like that. Now they're down to 2 booster product pack lines, really. And in that they have made it such that there's really only one spot where you can get cards that are explicitly outside of a set, and that is in the special guest slot. In the special guest slot, they have been treating like much more carefully and seem much more choosy about what cards they put in there, and a lot of those cards are like directly related to the plane, that kind of stuff. And I think, to your point, it could be really hard to fit some of these cards into some of these universes. But I don't know. I feel like there is a really easy world where, you know, we could have gone back to Innistrad, and one of the special guest cards could have been insert secret lair, you know, mechanically unique card here or whatever. And maybe that is some way that they will treat it going forward, but we're just going to have to figure it out. I'm waiting for the All Universes Beyond super big booster pack where I can open Wolverine and the 11th Doctor in the same pack, and it'll be a great day. And
that was kind of my thought.
Wow!
Of like, yeah, that seems like the cleanest execution of what they possibly could do is just like release some sort of pre-packaged, like either like a pre-constructed sort of like a gift box thing maybe at the end of the year that features some of like the greatest hits of their secret layers from that year or something like that, or like you're suggesting like a booster box kind of a thing. Although I'm not sure how that would work with the contracts they have with these companies. Like the one that they had with Lord of the Rings or Warhammer 40K, for instance, it seemed like they were more stringent to the point of not having been able to do something.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard from people and from what I have personally observed, I think a lot of these, like, not contracts, but a lot of the rules around how Wizards can use the IP, where the like limits are, how they can use it moving forward. I think that a lot of Wizards' hands are tied a little bit more on a lot of this stuff than maybe we have been led to believe over time. And I think that's maybe where some of the power of the universe within treatment was in the first place. I wouldn't doubt even if they wanted to, unless they went back to the, you know, table and gave AMC another big chunk of money or whatever, they probably quite literally cannot reprint Rick Steadfast Leader if they wanted to, would be my guess.
I would imagine,
and I think that's kind of the situation they're in with a lot of these cards. I would imagine the vast majority of these sets, if not all of these Universes Beyond set, their IP rights are for like exactly this set, for print runs that go from this calendar date to this calendar date, type of thing, you know. And maybe it's not that stringent, but it kind of feels that stringent. We have heard from Wizards themselves, from Mark Rosewater himself, really, even, that they can print Universe Within version of Lord of the Rings stuff. I know that was something that people were worried about for a second, like, oh, maybe they literally can't even mechanically replicate the Lord of the Rings cards, but that's not true. We know that, at least.
Yeah, if they ever choose to, they can reprint the One Ring before they ban it in Modern.
Yes, they should do it. I think maybe a sneaky other, like, a news thing that could be talked about in regards to this is like, man, what is Wizards of the Coast gonna do when Mark Rosewater retires? Not even from the perspective of game design, and that Magic the Gathering low-key has kind of been his baby for the majority of the last 25 plus years, in that he has been heavily involved in design and then leading design of the game for the vast majority of its lifespan. But also for many years now, he has basically been, for all intents and purposes, it's like lead PR person too. Like Blogatog, if you want an answer, if you want like an answer for something to do with Magic the Gathering, or like want some insight into how Wizards of the Coast may be thinking about something more internally, you can simply go to blogatog.tumblr.com, and that's your recourse. And that's kind of your only recourse, actually.
to get like that kind of direct messaging across with someone so integral in every part of the company. Yeah, like you can also like reach out to Gavin Verhey on Twitter and like talk to him about Commander stuff for sure, or like reach out to people through Discord and stuff like that. But like you said, there's just no one else out there who is putting in the sheer manpower that Mark is putting into like being a public resource and has been for decades now. Like how long has he been doing the Drive to Work podcast? That
Years.
He does, what, every single weekday?
He does 2 episodes a week.
2 episodes a week. But, I mean, yeah, still, that's thousands of episodes.
Yep. Let's see. He has just released episode 1186 of
Crazy.
Drive to Work. Yeah. Which is insane. That's so many.
And yeah, like you said, like once he chooses to retire, who could possibly step up and take that torch from him? You know, it's an immense amount of work, and we will certainly be trying to fill a big hole if he ever chooses to step down.
Yep. I suppose we will see what happens when it happens. I mean, he also writes about Magic every single week. He writes a big article that comes out every single Monday, too. Yeah. It's just a lot. They're going to have to figure out what to do on the PR side of things, I guess, when he retires. I did see a tweet from someone that was like, why is a $1 billion company largely relying upon one employee's Tumblr as their outlet to the outside world?
It's truly like a baffling, like if you think about it in just the plainest terms, it is a baffling business decision.
Look, I think about it as normal, but I've just been reading Blog and Talk for like a decade, so I'm just of course this is how it works.
That, like, yeah, if you think about Mark and you think about Magic and like how long that we've been playing, it's like it is a transition from like a sort of like I still think about it as being like a sort of like mom and pop kind of company where you would be hearing about the things that are going on behind closed doors from the guy who runs it all from his blog on Tumblr.
Yep. I know that was kind of just like the norm, but now they're kind of a big company. Kind of a big company.
Like, I don't know, just imagine if like the guy who ran Legos was like,
hey guys. I mean, hey,
here's like little hints about everything that's coming out with Lego in the next year, just because I'm having fun doing it.
Yep. Just like, okay. Well, speaking of some of the downsides of Wizards becoming a larger and larger company, let's talk about Donato Giancola. This is something that happened kind of right over MagicCon Vegas weekend. I think it kind of got buried in the news a little bit with a lot of the other stuff that was kind of going on. But for those who are not familiar, let's just start here. Donato Giancola, one of the most iconic fantasy artists of all time. Tons of work for a ton of different fantasy IPs, did a lot of work for Marvel in the past before he also very publicly cut ties with them in 2004. Has done a lot of work for Wizards of the Coast, has over 100 Magic the Gathering card arts to his name. He took to the internet over the weekend a bit ago, like I said, over MagicCon Vegas weekend, to decry Wizards of the Coast and say that he refused to work with them in the future. Donato Giancola kind of got ticked off at Wizards, I think understandably so, starting with the Trouble in Pairs situation, which was one of the very first things we got the ability to cover on this here podcast. The Magic card Trouble in Pairs. It was discovered by kind of a bunch of different people that it was a card basically pasted together and heavily plagiarized and heavily drawn over directly from a ton of different work, with the most like prominent piece of work being one of Donato's pieces that was plagiarized. And apparently, I think understandably, Donato was very frustrated at Wizards of the Coast over the situation. And he and their lawyers and WotC kind of came to some kind of, agreement over the whole ordeal, some kind of settlement that made everyone happy. But Donato pretty much said that, like, he already kind of had WotC on thin ice because of this, which is like something that happens. But he thought that Wizards of the Coast could have handled it better, et cetera, et cetera. He recently discovered that through someone on the inside sending him like the picture of a style guide, which is crazy. Someone inside of Wizards of the Coast was like, hey, I think you need to see this, which was crazy. Donato published this picture along with his post. It is a picture of the style guide for art for the upcoming like Marvel work, generalized for Wizards of the Coast for Magic the Gathering, specifically for Iron Man. And he discovered that Wizards of the Coast and Marvel had used one of his paintings of Iron Man in the World Style Guide for Iron Man, which was a set and also specifically a character that he refused to work on after like they had very long contract negotiations with him per him in this post. Everything that I'm going to say here is directly from Donato's post, until I note otherwise. They had a long contract dispute over Donato working on this set and specifically working on Iron Man, because Donato has done a lot of iconic work illustrating Iron Man in the past. And he was not all that happy about working with Marvel again. Like I said, he already publicly decried them and kind of cut ties and has not worked with them since 2004. Over a very long contract dispute, which in his words, Wizards basically refused to like modify 7 words of that he wanted changed. Which obviously 7 words can change a lot, but he refused to work on the set. And so for him, especially following the Trouble in Paris situation, while it may not have been explicitly illegal for Wizards of the Coast and Marvel to use the work, his work in this style guide, I think that's kind of more of a common thing than a lot of people would like to be believed. He said, and I think I would agree with him, that this is just kind of like, you know, they already went through the whole thing of like, okay, we want you to work with us. And he emphatically said, no, I will not be working on the set. I will not be painting Iron Man for you. And then for them to turn around and be like, hey, here's an example of how we would like Iron Man to look in this set. To just immediately be like, hey, can you make it look like Donato did this or similar? That feels not great to me. Dan,
understandably very deeply frustrating from Donato's perspective. Yeah, of just like, you had the opportunity to pay me a fair amount of money for my work, which is iconic and has been hugely responsible for making Magic as fantastic as it is. And you said no to that, and instead tried to get a bunch of people to try to do my work for me for presumably a much worse price, whatever he was not willing to take.
Yep. He then went on in the post later on. He decried the contracts, the compensation, and artist relations inside of WotC, which have gotten worse over the years, while also disclosing that while this was like the final straw that like angered him so much that he went to decrying Wizards publicly, like in the public square, on all of his social media, et cetera. He also disclosed that in November of 2023, after this Marvel contract dispute, he pretty much had already resolved to never work with Wizards again, but just like, you know, kind of keep it quiet and maybe down the line, maybe work with them again. But this is like the final straw. I think maybe the most damning portion of this entire thing is where he lays out his perspective of how the company has changed in recent years. Because again, like, he's been working with the company since pretty much the very beginning. He's been around for a long time. He said the changes have led to, in his words, stressed and overworked Wizards staff, freelance artists being underpaid for their highly complex, labor-intensive work-for-hire illustrations, and the oversaturation of the card market with product. So I guess this is the end of Donato Giancola working for Magic the Gathering, which I think is pretty sad. There are very few artists in Magic's history who I think I've appreciated more than Donato.
Yeah, Donato's got obviously a lot of really fantastic work, and I think he just really hits on it that, like, clearly we discussed before in the Trouble in Bears episode that, like, it's very clear that artists are under a lot of pressure in the Wizards camp to be putting out these pieces, and does not surprise me at all to hear that someone who has a lot of experience in the freelance art business says that he doesn't think that is, like, quite fair compensation for the work that people are producing. It's really sad.
Yep, definitely. And it is interesting. It feels like this is like the first very public instance that we've had of like an artist cutting off work with Wizards of the Coast, since at least a very notable artist.
Yeah, like Rebecca Guay stopped working with Wizards.
But it was
like,
just
did
because
not have this kind of like, this is why this is happening.
Yes, and my understanding of that situation, which could be entirely misinformed, was it was eventually pretty much just like, Wizards quite literally could not. They quite literally just like couldn't afford her anymore, as she became more and more popular in like the fine art world, where she is very successful now. So this is sad. I don't like it. And I think that this harkens back to a lot of the stuff that we did originally talk about all the way back toward the beginning of the show, when we were discussing the Trouble in Pairs plagiarism issues. And there's been a couple other obvious like plagiarisms, accusations and similar that were obvious art pieces that went to print for Magic that were obviously plagiarized. I think Donato kind of gets to the heart of a lot of why that happens here. There's a lot of stressed and overworked Wizard staff who have to oversee tons and tons of freelance artists that are probably being underpaid, that I would say are being underpaid, for the increasingly complex stuff that they're being asked to do to meet these very stringent standards, these really cool, but I'm sure very hard to execute on visions for special guests, different treatments, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not really surprised that this is kind of like where we're ending up. And I think it could be easy to say, and I think maybe in my brain, it's a little bit like, oh, really, Donato? Like, okay, an internal document that they're just using for reference had your art on it, whatever. It very well could have been an honest mistake by someone in creative, whatever. And I think my mind is there a little bit, but also it seems much more of like the very definition of like straw that broke the camel's back type of situation, more than anything else. So.
Yeah, it feels indicative of a situation where not enough care is being paid to the artists and their work, and people are just in poor situations, to say the least. Because all of this we haven't even mentioned just the sheer quantity of pieces that are being asked of artists at this point, where we've had 6 sets per year now, not to mention supplemental products and commander products and all of those sorts of things. Everyone from the artists to the people who are managing them to the people who are their contacts at Wizards and all of that, like all of these people are under like really strict deadlines and trying to put work through so fast. It's very unfortunate, but it's like not surprising that this is where like we're cutting corners in the world to make more products for Magic.
Yeah, definitely agree. So, to end this kind of more sad conversation on a kind of a fun note, I thought we could maybe share our favorite Donato art and why it is our favorite Donato art. Unfortunately, I am a coward, and I personally was not able to to narrow it down to just one. So I have 2, and
I also have 2. Okay,
excellent. Okay, and the fun thing for me is they are from 1993 and 2023. So that's kind of like the very beginning of his work with Wizards, and now, unfortunately, toward the very end of his work with Wizards. Let's go with the early one first. I think this is maybe kind of a no-brainer. Memory Jar from the beloved Magic the Gathering set. What is it? Urza's Legacy.
Yes.
I knew it.
That is an extremely good choice. That is a Magic art that I've stared at many times. Like all of the, like, you can see the little faces and memories inside of the memory jar, smoke coming out of the lantern. It's so cool.
Yeah, just like the smash lantern. I love the motion. I love the pinks and blues and purples contrasting with the green on the ground. Like, the colors are awesome. The motion's awesome. All the little faces. Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying. So that's my first pick. I guess we should go to your first pick.
Okay, so my first pick is the original Mirari in... I can't remember what set this is in.
It is in...
The Mirari is like
Odyssey,
the set
right?
symbol. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love this, and my tied for second place piece was going to be Chrome Mox, because I love like this MC Escher reference that he does in both of these pieces with the crystal ball. But the Mirari in particular, like the power of like the columns behind the actual Mirari, the little figure standing in it, you can really you can sense the amount of like space and depth in this piece, which I think like really helps to add to like, it's a really subtle way to show like the immense power of this object.
And I, again, not to say the exact same thing that I just said, but I love like the motion that is present in this piece. Just like, you know, that's just what the Mirari looks like, with all the swoopy kind of almost liquid looking metal. But man, maybe Donato just does motion extremely well.
I think so. I think like even if you look at his still pieces, even if you look at like Chrome Mox, there is still just like there's a ton of motion in the shape of the Mox, in the like in the more abstract background. There's like a lot of like movement and texture in it. I think yeah, you're right. He definitely does a really good job of like telling a story with an image.
And speaking of telling a story in an image and doing a whole lot of motion in and around what is ostensibly a very still piece, my second choice for Donato is the borderless Commander Master's Demonic Tutor.
That's a really, really gorgeous piece.
Yes, featuring a center stage. There is a woman opening up some kind of forbidden spell book, and there's like a bunch of unknown characters bursting out. Again, I love like the purple pinkish color he uses for this. It really pops out of everything else, with this horrifying demon like back behind her, obviously telling her that, oh yes, is this knowledge really forbidden because it's dangerous to you, or maybe it's dangerous to those who want to control you. Like the composition is awesome. I love the design of the demon. The demon is insane. The demon looks insane. Man, nice that we're a video podcast now, that our video watchers can just look at these cards. And again, with like some motion, what is ostensibly like a woman standing there opening up a book, someone standing behind her, the big demon standing behind her. You've got this like magic like flowing out of the book, and it's like swooping forward over the frame. And also in like the upper right and the bottom left, there's like these weird other like ghastly demony figures kind of swooping in and around, that also adds some more motion of the piece, which they both do like kind of point back towards her and kind of recenter your vision there. But man, I just love it. I love everything about this piece. It's sick.
What I really enjoy about this piece actually is like the lighting source, where like her face has that sort of like if you have like the flashlight under your face as if you're telling a scary story, but like the light is all focused like up on the big demon's face, and it really shows you like all of the details and the wings and everything, but also like gives you that sense of like upward momentum.
Definitely. Oh man, do you have a second card, Dan?
Speaking of upward momentum, the second piece that I picked is Donato's art for 7th edition Shivan Dragon.
That's a good one.
Yes,
that's a good one.
Like obviously Shivan Dragon, one of the most iconic cards in Magic. But I think this is probably my favorite one of them all. Very simple background, but like again, the motion of the dragon in the foreground, the huge light of like the magma falling behind him is very cool. I think that this is just like a very excellent piece.
And I think there's a very obvious reason why this is the piece they have basically continued to use ever since 7th edition, except for like they put a new piece. They put like I think like Donato revisiting. Yeah, this is also a Donato piece. Like revisiting kind of the exact same concept in Dominaria Remastered, but otherwise they have used this exact same piece for Shivan Dragon for the last 20 plus years. And yeah, you can see why. It is the prototypical dragon, and it also just is incredible.
I mean, if you think about like the origins of Magic, the origins of like the first Shivan Dragon comparison to Donato's Shivan Dragon, no offense to who is it? Mary Benson?
Yeah, Melissa Benson.
Melissa Benson, yeah. In comparison to like Melissa Benson's original piece for this, there's such an obvious like step up in the quality of the art that they're able to get for this game. And again, no offense to Melissa Benson, but like obviously all of the like even like Mark Poole and Chris Rush, like at that time, there's just people in the infancy of their art career, and that's just what Magic could afford to pay for. But yeah, like once we get into this like the middle school modern era of Magic. Like this is where I think the art really just starts to shine and become such an integral part to how fantastic the game is. Not to say that that was ever untrue, because I think that was a large part of what made Magic great the entire time.
Mm-hmm. I think that is like a place that Donato really has in like the early part of the game. Obviously not like the, you know, not the sole first like wow, incredible artwork artist that the game had, but he was definitely a major part of that shift, even as early as Urza's Legacy, like in 93 and earlier than that too. There are some early pieces that, to your point, you know, we do step up from art students that the art director of Wizards of the Coast happened to have a connection with at the time to, you know, other people, not even the art director of Wizards of the Coast. Someone who worked at the Wizards of the Coast had a connection at a local art school, and they got a lot of art for cheap. Yeah. And some of it is really iconic now. But I think Donato was really a big part of that communal step up into something greater. I think that's a great point, Dan.
I mean, it's certainly indicative of him like being so involved in like Marvel and other really fantastic art projects.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, you know, in the spirit of Donato, talking about how much stuff is coming out for Magic the Gathering, I suppose we should move on to the Product Watch.
Product Watch!
The Product Watch is presented by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. After all, you need to clear out space for all the new products we're about to discuss. Brought to you by the beloved team behind Card Hoarder, Card Conduit does the hard work of getting you the best buy list prices available for your cards. All you have to do is send them one package, taking advantage of your selection of their 3 services. I use the sorted service, which has you collate and enter cards ahead of time in return for the lowest fees. Don't worry, you can just send them a huge box of random unsorted cards too, and they'll figure out the rest. I've used Card Conduit myself 5 different times to thin my collection and have had exclusively great experiences. Use code HORN at checkout or use the link in the podcast description to get 10% off your fees and help support the show. Dan, big Marvel fan?
No, I have bought a very finite amount of comic books in my entire life. I could probably count them on one hand. I could probably count the number of times I've been to a comic book shop to buy comics. I think it was a single time.
Okay. Big Marvel Secret Lair card design fan.
Storm is pretty cool. I'm gonna try a CDH version of Storm. The other ones looked alright. I don't know. None of them were very memorable to me.
Not very memorable to you.
I don't remember what they do.
That's, yeah, okay. In your defense, that's fair. For a bit of a recap for the listeners at home, we have talked about these on the show before, but there is Storm, a teamer flying vigilant 3/4, that whenever you deal combat damage to a player, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm, which is nuts. We have Black Panther, Wakandan King, which costs a green and a white. He's a human noble hero. I haven't seen a hero creature type in a second, I feel like. Or maybe a noble. I haven't seen a noble creature type in a minute. I don't know.
We must have had some in Dominaria. Have we had heroes before, though?
Maybe. I feel like there's gotta be.
I'll have to Scryfall.
So this is a 2-drop 2/2 with First Strike and Survey the Realm. Whenever Black Panther or another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target land you control. And then it has Mine Vibranium. 3, move all +1/+1 counters from target land you control onto target creature. If one or more +1/+1 counters are moved this way, you gain that much life and draw a card. So like a fun Selesnya +1/+1 counter type of Cares about your lands, cares about +1/+1 counters on creatures. Neat. There is, of course, Wolverine, best there is. A Gruul 3-drop 2/2. Unrivaled lethality, double all damage Wolverine would deal. At the beginning of each end step, if Wolverine dealt damage to another creature this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on him. And then 1 in a green, regenerate Wolverine. That just kind of seems like a fun Voltron commander, maybe. Potential.
Regenerate, very flavorful. Couldn't not do it.
Yes, exactly. And then there's Iron Man, Titan of Innovation, and is it 5-drop, 4/4, flying haste. Whenever he attacks, create a treasure token. Then you may sacrifice a non-creature artifact. If you do, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1, plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Kind of a fun birthing pod variant.
That's actually pretty cool. I don't know that I've ever read the Iron Man one before. That's actually pretty fun. I do like birthing.
And I like that, like, he gives you the treasure, but then you, like, get the choice of, like, all right, do I want to go get a 1-drop, or do I want to keep this treasure? Or he gives you something to start with.
Do I want to find Soul Ring, or do I want to do something nasty? All right, Cal, quiz time. There is a singular card in the history of Magic that has the hero creature type previous to these secret layers. Can you name that card?
Oh, man, it's totally something from, like, the first 4 years of Magic the Gathering.
I don't think that's correct.
Wow. I'm going to say Banalish Hero.
No. It is a card from Unhinged called Fraction Jackson. I've never seen this card before. It's a rare.
Boo. I know what the art
don't
looks
boo
like.
me. I'm just the messenger.
I know what the art looks like. I can picture it in my head.
I've never seen it before. I've never seen this one.
What does he do?
Fraction Jackson is 2 and a green for a 1/1.5 human hero. You can pay green and tap him to return target creature card with a half on it from your graveyard to your hand.
Anyways, back to real Magic the Gathering cards. Captain America, First Avenger. Costs red, white, and blue. They changed the order of the mana symbols in his mana tech in his text box, in his cost, from what it would normally be to have the little America joke, I guess. He's got throw, 3, unattached equipment from Captain America. He deals damage equal to that equipment's mana value, divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. Ha ha ha, the shield's bouncing around. How fun. And then catch at the beginning of combat on your turn. Attach up to 1 target equipment you control to Captain America. He's also a 4/4. So each of these secret layers had like a Marvel character and then also some associated cards with them, with I think the most standout one being Storm, because it came with Ice Storm, Metamorphose, Lightning Bolt, and Jessica's Will, which is kind of a crazy spread. But this secret layer drop, it has happened as of yesterday at time of recording, as of 4 days ago at the time of episode release. It was a disaster.
Thank you for saying that, because I saw it in the script and I was like, is he going to say it out loud? I hope so.
Derogatory. People who jumped in as soon as they were able to spent like hours in this queue trying to get the drop. The line at one point crashed and was paused and had to be restarted. And I think
that happened really early on too. It seemed like people were tweeting that like a half an hour after it went live.
Yep. And then like people eventually figured out that like you could just once you had like made your cart, it would put you in the line, but you could like put in the URL of the checkout into your browser and it would just take you directly there and you could check out, which is the cheesiest thing I can think of.
Yes. I saw people posting this on both Twitter and on Reddit. So I guess this is like a known thing that people have done. But yeah, saw lots of reports of people doing it on Twitter.
And this was very in demand for very obvious reasons, but then there was also a Avengers Tower themed arcane signet like bonus card that you would get with some of the bundles, and so a lot of people were rushing to try to get that as well. So the set, it sold out very quickly. And then like a lot of people who were in line were not notified that the things they were waiting for were sold out, so they would wait in line for 2-3 hours, check it in, maybe actively paying attention, and then when they got to the checkout, by waiting in line, whatever they were waiting for, be it a bundle or the Wolverine non-foil or whatever, they found it sold out, which is not exactly a great experience. And now the whole Marvel Secret Lair is shocking, now being wildly scalped with sealed drops, like a sealed package of these, which was like $40 or $50, depending on if you went for foil or non-foil. They're now going for 100 plus, and all the individual singles, like being sold out of them, like they add up to above $100. So it's just like insane.
Yeah. The arcane signets that were a bonus if you spent more than $200 or something like that. Those sold out, I think, in under an hour, and people are listing them on TCG Player for $200+. Kind of incredible how limited the supply of the arcane signets were for the already limited supply Secret Lair set.
Yep. And this once again goes kind of back around to a conversation we've had a lot of times. Every time big, like, notable Secret Lair drops have come around, we've got to have the conversation of like, oh, why don't they just go back to the original print to demand model? Because like with sets like these, that would kind of be the ideal. And I just wanted to note that at long last, I have kind of finally seen some people talking about some of the damage that model was having on stores, specifically LGSs and the like, which this is a pro LGS podcast, I believe.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know Emma's beliefs. We have to talk to Emma about this one.
Secret Lairs in their unlimited printing variety were presenting some problems for LGSs, because LGSs would obviously be incentivized to order them so they themselves could have these singles, and they had to pay, they had to allocate such and such an amount of money to these Secret Lairs, and then these Secret Lairs would not show up for 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12 months. In some cases, the 12-year case being the coin flip Secret Lair, which I never ended up with because it got delivered to an old address, and when I went there, the lady that rented after us told me she never got it, which I don't believe personally, but that's on
She's
her
flipping
conscience.
that coin right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Realized I said that with such a serious face.
And that, together with unlimited Secret Lairs with like theoretically relatively high value cards in them, were absolutely cratering card prices, which is a big advantage for the consumer for obvious reasons, but does have a major effect on LGSs, especially smaller LGSs, where they do take theoretically a lot of risk in having a lot of stock that does not have kind of one standard price. It fluctuates all over the place. And so many cards were being cratered by these unlimited Secret Lair drops, and so many of these Lair drops were taking an unknown amount of time to get around, and by the time they got there, who knows how in demand they would actually be, who knows how valuable they would be. It was causing a lot of problems for stores.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
However,
at a base level, if you have things on your shelf, your store is losing money. You need things to be already gone. And if you have invested multiple hundreds of dollars into this product that you're not going to see for 8 months and then is absolutely worthless by the time it gets to you, it's just, a failing measure.
Definitely agree. And however, I get that. I understand that maybe, especially from the LGS perspective, it is maybe not the greatest of all if all of these things are unlimited availability. We have also seen, as much as we have worried about the logistics and problems of Lairs selling out and stuff in the past, there's been like 1 or 2 or 3 drops that have really actually kind of gone like this.
We've had like the Monty Python Lair that was like also upset a lot of people, but I don't even remember what the last one was before that.
There's been several since then. Rather, not that it was upset people. There's been plenty of successful, relatively limited Lair drops that people have not been as upset about. But I feel like there could probably be some kind of middle ground here. To be explored between
I've seen a lot of people like accusing WotC of leaving money on the table, and I guess like that's the point where I'm like, I'm sure they're not leaving money on the table doing this the way that they're doing it. They have done whatever calculations you need to do in terms of, like, we can spend this amount of money renting these printers and devoting our printer time to printing these things and, like, advertising for these things before it eventually has, before it eventually becomes not profitable for us. But it does seem like at a very base level, like, this does not benefit anyone besides scalpers.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, just doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this, I think. Unfortunate this didn't go well. It feels like they maybe underestimated demand or did want to create a big rush scenario, which, I mean, like, Nike did have that as a popular business model for a while, and now that's kind of causing them a lot of problems. So there is some amount of value to be gained in the hype around a limited thing, but maybe the introduction of the Marvel property to the game was not the ideal thing to cause a bunch of problems and create a lot of bad feelings.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to want to introduce a huge audience to Magic and giving them an extremely limited product that sold out in 6 hours during a workday.
Yep, exactly. That's the tale of the tape. That's the story. I gotta say, I think that's all we really got to talk about on the Product Watch this week. I would like to talk a lot about Foundations next week, so prepare yourself. I have a lot of thoughts about Foundations. I have some stuff I want to dig into in that set. It's so awesome. But we're already running a little long this week.
Foundations pre-release. Maybe.
What?
So I think I'm slated to do Foundations creator pre-release.
Oh yeah,
so maybe I'll have some insider knowledge.
Nice, yeah. The set looks so sick. First set that I've been super excited about for a long time. And it'll be nice to talk about it. However, it's time to move on to the part of the show where the co-hosts talk about whatever they want to talk about. We only got one co-host this week. It is time for the co-host notebook. Welcome to the co-host notebook, the part of the show where the co-hosts decide what we want to talk about. Dan, do you have anything written down in your obnoxiously gargantuan notebook there that I can see on camera?
Can you? Which one? You're telling a joke. I have a lot of gargantuan notebooks in my room, but I didn't think that you could see one from your angle. Let's see. What's in my notebook? I don't remember. I think last week I already talked about Resident Evil 4. I got Luigi's Mansion for GameCube. Having a great time. Picked up Paper Mario for GameCube as well. And that has been an extremely fun time. I'm very, very smitten with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. That is a very, very fun game.
Yep. That card is not that card. Holy moly. Magic Mode. That game is so sick. Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door. Got to be one of my favorite video games of all time. The stylization is awesome. I like the combat system a good bit. The story is a lot of fun. It's really cute. They do a lot of really fun stuff with it. There's a dragon who's into feet. It's a good time.
Okay, all right. My friend Kai told me to hit him up when I ran into some sort of character, and I'm gonna guess that it's the feet dragon. I don't remember what the character name he told me to look up for.
There's a screenshot that goes around a lot on the internet that's like the dragon in the game talking about feet, but
well, I spent $70 on this game, not even knowing there was a feet dragon in it. So
you know. Fair. And you bought it on the GameCube, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, no, they can't scrub the feet dragon out with some sort of update on me now. No, as soon as I started playing and the little ship brings you into the port of Rogue Town or Rogue Port or whatever it's called, and the entire ship lifts up out of the water and flips around because everything is 2D and then starts floating away the other way, I was like, oh, this is going to be an extremely fun time.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun to they find a lot of cute and fun ways to work in the fact that yes, this is a world made entirely of paper, and what do we have to do for that? It's just neat.
Yeah, they pay a lot of attention to like the little minutia of how would this look if I was trying to turn a corner in a 2D world and things like that, and it seems like in a lot of ways very ahead of its time.
Yep, I would agree. And since then, we have gotten much worse games in that exact same vein. from Nintendo, unfortunately, including the new Mario and Luigi game, which from what I've heard is not great. Unfortunate. Dan, do you have anything you want to leave our listeners with before we go?
Yeah, this is a little bit sadder, but Greg Hildebrandt, another really wonderful Magic artist, passed away last week. So yeah, just enjoy some good Magic art after you listen to this show. And find me on all the platforms, Moderately Anonymous MTG, blah blah blah. That's it.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We have a wonderful interview for you coming up next, and we will see you back here for the news next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you want to help support the podcast, check out our Patreon. You'll get a sticker in the mail and access to our Patreon exclusive content, which I'm always cooking up more of every day. We've got bonus questions with guests, exclusive interviews, me thought dumping about Magic in my life. What else could you want? Plus, when we read letters to the editors, those sent through Patreon DMs or the Discord get first priority. Yep, we have a Discord that you'll be thrown into. Come talk to me about professional wrestling. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get back into this episode. On this episode, I am joined by Mike Carosa, the longtime author of the Am I the Bolus article series, in which he explores whether or not whoever is in this game, in this situation, is the bolus. He is also a stand-up comedian. He also has a podcast version of the article. It's a little bit different. It's called Am I the Bullcast? Mike is one of my good buddies, and I loved getting to talk to him about, well, a lot of different stuff. Let's get into it.
It's like an ambush show that they forget happens every week.
So there were like 10 people there?
I don't know, full bar, just people being like, oh, what's this? Oh, no, do you want to move to the patio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Classic grumpies.
Yeah. They're like,
Classic.
Oh, I was just coming out to drink. I didn't know there was someone fun here.
I wasn't aware that I would be expected to listen. Yeah.
That's how I feel about live music, unfortunately. Every time I walk into a bar and there's a band, I'm like, let's get out of here. But I feel like if it was comedians, I'd be like, hell yeah.
You think so? I'm the other way.
It probably depends on the vibe.
I'm so far the other way. 100%. And I'm a comedian.
Do you hate your own, Mike?
No, I love comedy and I love comedians. I just hate comics and people who think they're doing comedy and really are just not doing anything.
Oh, so and I assume that's going to be a relatively large percentage of the population that walk into bar and then there is comedy happening. Yeah. Technically, theoretically comedy happening.
Oh, you know what? I just understood your question, actually. Yeah, no, I hate Italians. I hate Italians. I hate my own.
Well, no, I meant comedians.
No, you meant Italians.
No,
and you
actually,
know what? Fair
I actually
question.
meant Catholics.
Catholics, yeah, hate them too. Look, a lot of my past and my present are just
self-hatred.
Hell yeah, dog. It's what pushes me to be so silly and fun, but then also filled with rage.
And welcome back. It's the back half of the show. I am joined by the one, the only Mike Carosa.
Carrozza, baby.
Carrozza?
I just go Carrozza. It's supposed to be Carrozza. You got to be like a real Italian about it. But I'll tell you what, my market is in America, and I don't force that on them.
Have you ever introduced yourself that way?
No, but a friend of mine insists on doing it, and I get mad at him all the time. My buddy Walter will insist on. He calls me Mikey Cuckoo Carrozza. And if he's hosting a show, that's how he'll bring me up on stage, and I have to be like, you know, I don't want to talk about how I'm Italian. Let me do this fart joke I wrote.
Hey guys, I wrote a fart joke. So, Mike, I've already introduced you at the beginning of the show. You're a comedian. You've wrote an article for quite a long time.
Yeah, I got that series.
And now you have a podcast.
Yeah, boy.
Kind of with the same bit as the article.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to bring you into the horn this is a physical horn that you are now hanging out within the bell of, as was established by Sam of the Howling Salt Mine podcast. You're now here, you're in the horn, and I wanted to talk to you a bit about what I think of in my mind as the Bolus verse, the Am I the Bolus verse. Your partnered article series, a mail grab bag, and podcasts. It all started with the Am I the Bolus like article series, right?
Right. Yeah. So
where did that come from?
Basically, years ago, I had applied to EDH Rec to write a column, like many, many years ago. I'm talking about so long ago. I messaged Jason Alt like, hey, I have an idea for the series. And he was like, it doesn't really fit with EDH Rec, but I like you. And I'm sure down the line, at some point, we'll end up working together. And I was like, yeah, that's really nice of him to say, but I don't know if that's going to come together like that. And then literally years later, Commander's Herald's about to pop off. We're starting off a new website. Get this. You're going to be one of the first people with a column on there. And at first we were, I think it was monthly. I'm not too sure. I'm actually going back in the archives right now to find the
I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up now. Yeah.
Straight up, literally right now, I'm looking it up. So it was like bi-weekly still. So it was like February 8th, 2021, the first ever Am I the Bolus. So I got a message from Jason saying, hey, you know how you wanted to write for EDH Rec? We're starting this new website. It's on the DL right now, but like, I think you're the right fit for it. We want it to be more like goofy, less like stats based, and more like the vibe of Commander. And we ended up on this, Am I the asshole? Like, like on Reddit, like AITA thread. Like, I was like, well, we should have one of those for Magic. There's so many social situations, and not for nothing. A lot of people in Magic or play Magic are not the most adept at social encounters. And so there's a lot of people who walk away from something and rack their brain on whether or not they did something different or wrong, or, that would make somebody uncomfortable with something. And there's a lot of social faux pas. And so we thought, perfect scenario. We started things off, got the first article out, and then the emails started very slowly. And now it's just like, I've got a backlog that I'm touching on stuff right now that I received in like April. At the moment. Yeah.
And, so this is what, November? We're in November.
This is November.
Holy
November.
Moly.
Yeah, election result day is what we're talking. But oh baby,
am I turning around this interview on the video podcast in 12 hours? I don't want to talk about it.
No, I'm not. We're not. Hey, let me just say, we could timestamp this episode all we want. We're gonna need some time. We don't, I didn't even take the time to move my light so it doesn't absolutely wash me out. Look at this. You know what I mean? I have to lay down so I can get a real color.
I was gonna say we can fix that in post, but no, I can't color correct.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not asking for that.
No,
Here's what I'll do.
I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to learn
there
this stuff.
There we go. Look at this. I'm going to lay down in my chair. That's what I'm going to do. The arm does the work to keep the microphone proper.
Oh, yeah, right where it needs to be. You're comfy. You're vibing.
Yeah, baby. I'm vibing. So, yeah, Commander's Herald started as the EDH Rec sister site. Jason Alt reached out. We started working on this column, and, it's been going ever since like the start of the website.
Yeah, I like the idea of the am I the asshole type of thing. 'Cause like you said, that's a very popular subgenre of content on the internet in general. But
yeah,
I think a lot of those type of stories, or like people asking those questions, is kind of like you said. We always see that at the top of like r/Magic CCG r/
totally
EDH all the time, and then there's like the other side of the story too, where someone's like, I think someone was a jerk. And that's what the Howling Salt Mine podcast is for. So,
well, I mean,
we've got two podcasts that cover both sides of the bases.
Here's the fun thing about the Howling Salt Mine. And so I started the column, and like years later, Howling Salt Mine starts, and I'm like, these guys we were literally developing the podcast. We were literally about to launch Am I the Bullcast, or like get it set up. And we were like, these guys, I'm sorry. Out my I'm sorry. Well, I found out about him and I was like, instead of being like, ah, damn, they got to it first, it's all theirs or whatever. It was kind of like, yeah, there's room for all of it. They're on Reddit a lot. We get sent stories, and the idea of the podcast ended up being more like we're gonna invite people on for like interviews about their Magic pet peeves, or if they have a story, and we're gonna be like guest focus versus the story focus, and that worked out nice. And I think my first instinct was, I want to work with these guys because I like their vibe. They're
very funny guys.
They're very funny. They're very sweet. They're kind. They're good people. They know what they're talking about. They've got a great dynamic. Howling Salt Mine could not get a bigger endorsement out of me if they tried, because it's already huge.
It's already the biggest
It's
endorsement.
the biggest. And like, that's the thing. We did a 2-parter episode with them. That was fun. But the first thing that we worked on together was, I messaged them like, hey, it seems like we're doing kind of like the same thing. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, do you guys want to work on something together? They're like, hell yeah. And so I did an episode with them on their podcast. And then I did a column article for my column that was like the Howling Salt Mine crossover. And that was really fun to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So people are on Reddit talking about their stories and stuff. I rarely get Reddit posts. I say it in my articles, like, if you want to send me a story of your own or one that you witnessed, awesome. Hell, if you even see one on Reddit that you like, send it over. But if you're listening to both podcasts, you're probably sending the Reddit post to Howling Salt Mine and then messaging me like, here we go. I want your opinion on this story. And that's kind of how we've carved out our niches in that way.
Oh, okay.
But the
Yeah,
boys
that
are
makes
doing
sense.
great.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have this article. How long has the article been going now? How long has the series been going?
The series have been going since February 2021. And so we're coming up on 4 years in February. So a couple months before it's 4 years.
That's wild.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's cool to see that, like, what's happened lately is a lot of the submissions, and this is, when you're reading these email submissions, there's a couple things that you pick up on. Like, you find the trends in what people are dealing with at their LGS, or like certain things that are like a concern in the community. Like at one point, king making was all I could talk about because that's all people was sending in, and that was the big concern.
And it's like, oh well, I have my king making story. What about this?
Exactly. And so it was like, I think we got to define king making, and then have to like put a moratorium on king making stories for a little bit. But that said, now it's so you'll see that kind of thing. But also lately, what's been happening is people starting their submissions with like, I found your column and I ripped right through it, and I'm so stoked about it, and it got me thinking about this. And it's always very nice when people start with that. I'm glad people are digging it enough to like go through the backlog and really check it out. And I hope people are checking out the podcast and liking that too. But if you like one, not the other, or you like both, awesome. Thank you so much. That rules so hard. Really does.
And what do you think your favorite part of doing the article? Is it just is it that validation of people reading it and then you can get excited about it? Or do you love reading all the stories and dunking on people?
So here's the weird part about the stories is that I don't really get to dunk on people much because unfortunately there's no way around this. There's going to be an inherent bias to the stories coming through.
Yeah,
you're only getting one perspective.
Even if someone thinks they may be, thinks they may be the bullies in the scenario, and they're asking you for confirmation, they may still tone it down a little bit.
They tip the scales quite a bit, so you're not going to see a lot of people getting called the bolus based on what they're saying. But I like to be like, hey, if this is how you were doing this, sure, you're not the bolus, but this is how I'm taking it, so maybe you were, buddy. I think my favorite part of it is kind of, I don't know how to put this without sounding like a prick, so I'm just gonna like try to vocalize it.
You can just say it.
I'm an extremely comfortable person. Like I'm very socially well versed. Like I've been a comedian since I turned 18. I even before then I've been doing like public speaking and like street jokes since I was like a child. I've hosted events since I was like a little boy. I don't care about being in public. I'm good at talking to people. My family always thought that I'd grow up to be a politician. Like, I'm good with people. I'm good at social interactions. I can navigate that well. I'm good at networking. That's another strength of mine. When we talk about comedy, like if that comes up, we'll talk about that. So when it comes to Am I the Bolus, and essentially this view of the Magic community, and from what I've experienced in the Magic community, a lot of folks are kind of it's a difficulty point for them. Social interaction isn't necessarily like their strong suit, or maybe they'll interpret one thing in one way or miss it, and then they meant it another way or something. Like they just get in their head about stuff. And so for me, when I get stories where it's more social leaning, that's when I get excited, because that's my favorite part, is being like, hey, do you know what makes this a lot easier on you? Is understanding that you are good. Don't worry about it. Like,
yeah, actually you're fine. Don't think about it too much.
Yeah, enjoy. Hey, unless you're saying some wild stuff, in which case, like, maybe fine tune your sense of humor and find out where to bring that out. But like, I think social interactions aren't easy for people, and I like being the person to be like, you know what's really good actually? Confrontation isn't always a bad thing. If you get things out in the open, then you're doing a good thing for people. So like, that's why I've been slow, like in my columns over time, you'll see that I'm advocating for like what I think is like good confrontation, which is like somebody did something in a game and I wasn't a fan of it, and it's like, hey, you know what's good about that is that you've identified a thing that you didn't enjoy, you know who to talk to about it, and you seem to, at least in this email, have the tact to be able to approach the subject, and you have your thoughts gathered. I think you're off to a great start to like fix the issue that you're experiencing. You can approach this person with an open mind and kind heart and just say, hey, I would like to confront you about this situation. This is what happened. Here's how it made me feel. Do you think we can come to a compromise? And that feels like daunting and stuff for people, but like when you show them and you tell them like, look at how well you did it talking to me, a person you have not met. We don't know each other. You're emailing me. You're doing a great job. This is how, just take it to your friend. Have the 90% of the column ends with have a conversation with your friends. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the fun part about doing the column is sometimes getting those stories and being like, I hope I impacted that person. I hope they read that and were like, oh yeah, maybe that's something they take into not just Magic, but like, day to day.
Yeah, and I think that is the fun part about getting to do that kind of article, right? Where you do get to share advice with people as a wizened man of advanced age.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
Old and gray, drooping
I mean, it's that
bones.
It's that mustache. It's got that little bit of gray in it.
It does age me quite a bit. It is staggering. I shaved not too long ago, and buddy, I'll tell you what, I look my age when I shave.
You felt like a bouncing baby boy.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Give me a Anita bounce on. I'll bounce on that thing all day. Tell you that much.
So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense what you said about what you enjoy about the article, and I don't think it's like full of yourself or whatever to get to say, oh, I think that I have a lot of experience in this area, and this is what has worked for me, and you should try it out. Getting to share that experience with a group of people that could certainly use that experience.
Fair
advice.
The part that I was worried about was the part where I was like telling people like, hey, you guys are pretty bad at social interaction. Like that's the part that I was like, there's not a real nice way to go about this.
I do think that is like my main takeaway every time I read one of those like AITA posts online or whatever. The answer, like 90, obviously like 20% of the time, there's like some objective evil going on or something.
Well, like the couple that had their wedding at Disney but didn't have any food. That one's a classic. That one's one of my favorites.
Yep, exactly. It's just like stuff like that. There are also like objectively bad people in some of these stories or whatever, but so many of the times it's just like, oh, you guys had a mild miscommunication that kind of snowballed a little bit, and someone is continually handling it poorly, or both of you are, so what if you just tried to fix that? Okay, cool.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then everyone in the comments on the post are like, yes, you are objectively correct. Don't give up a single inch. Yeah. So, maybe you should try that tact.
Yeah, don't get. Yeah, you know what? I just submitted one. I'm gonna go back and edit that and be like,
just actually
put your foot down.
You're bad. They're bad.
Whoopsie, you suck.
You're awesome.
Hey,
They are
you know
the
that
bullies.
Toxrill deck that people are telling you is too oppressive, and that you're mad that they focus you down? Yeah, well, they suck at the game. You are
Yeah.
the one ruler.
Have they considered getting good?
Yeah.
That's my question for the
Yeah.
people.
Hey, removal. Am I right? Have they heard of it? Have they heard of no variance in their card deck? Huh? Card deck.
So-
what am I dumb?
with the Am I the Bullcast, you have taken
Yeah.
a little bit of a different tint. You
Yeah.
bring on guests and you talk to them about their pet peeves, the things
Yeah.
that irk them in Commander games, and then at the end you have a rating scale, which I believe boils down to you are the
I
one that always
decide.
makes the call. Yeah,
Yeah. So the podcast is going through some changes.
whether or not their pet peeve is worth it or not.
Exactly.
I will admit, Mike, I have not listened to very many episodes of your podcast recently. I'm the bad guy here.
Damn. I'm
I
always
know.
listening to something, but I get it. I'll say, here's the thing about the podcast. Going through some changes right now where, unfortunately, we've parted ways with Michael Solani. Not like, hey, we hate him or anything. It's just that scheduling sucks already. Having a third person. And then, so essentially Morgan and I are going through the backlog of episodes I've already recorded. Because here's the process. I'll have an interview with somebody and it'll be really good and really timely and nice. And then 5 months later, it's time for it to come out, and I have to listen to that interview I had, find a way to try to bring it up naturally in the pre-interview chat that the subject is going to be whatever it is. And also, once we do the bookends with Morgan and I on the front end and on the back end, and at the time Michael as well, and try to find like a fun thing to kind of relate to it. Then afterwards, I have to listen to the whole episode again. The editor listens to it, sets it up, edits it, sends it to me for one last look, and then I say yes, thumbs up, and I have to upload and stuff. No. I want to reduce all that. I think if we're gonna come back to it, we'll retool. I just can't listen to myself have the same conversation.
Yeah, 6 times.
6 times just so I can get an episode out. And the other thing is, we had so much fun on the live show. We did a live show at Commander Sealed this year. And it was a blast. People came to the mic and like shared their stories and stuff and their pet peeves. And we ended up having like a really fun conversation. And I feel like the pet peeves, because not everybody's like going to have a story offhand, but everybody's got a topic that they want to talk about when it comes to Commander. And having a conversation about a topic is a lot easier and eventually can lead into a story, which is why I like to have a guest on and pick a pet peeve over a story, unless they're like, oh, I have something perfect for this. And the podcast is going to shift towards being a live kind of YouTube live or Twitch show where guests, I'll have like a guest host with me. Like that'll be how it is. Like you did an episode of the podcast. Well, we're going to do the stream. Cal Jones is with us tonight and we're going to take your calls. And while we're waiting for people to like talk in the chat saying I have one, and then we vet them in the Discord voice or whatever before we bring them on, we'll talk about what we're thinking. And all that's going to condense into like an hour and a half long episode. We get the audio ripped immediately. Don't gotta edit anything. Pop it online. Video's already done.
Go to town.
Go to bed. More like I got 3 jobs. I'm not about to add more. I got 3 jobs and I love my girlfriend. I want to hang out with her sometimes, So that said, there are some changes coming, but the idea is like, I love having people on and talking about a thing that bugs them. Because what's fun about that is you learn so much more about a person than if they were like, I love this one thing. Because we're already talking about Magic. We already love the game. Like, if I showed up and I was like, hey, I love Magic. I love Rakdos Aristocrats. And you'll be like, okay, well, that's fun. I already have a full idea about that. But if I showed up and I was like, I hate Farewell so much, be like, okay, why specifically Farewell? And then you get to uncover that so much more. It's like when Davey came on and she was like, I hate the color white. I hate playing it. I hate playing against it. It's like, what is it? And so eventually you get to a point in the discussion where you're like, how do we address this in a way that makes you either appreciate your pet peeve a little bit or find a way to kind of restructure it so it doesn't bug you so much, or makes you like more aware of how to confront the thing. You know, that's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good goal to keep in mind. I'm kind of going through that right now with the Herald Horn even, because I've made the swap to making it into like a video podcast now, which requires a lot more work and requires a lot more prep and a lot more after the fact work and all that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of sitting here and I'm like, oh, this part of the show is kind of fun, but what if I changed how I did everything?
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Cause it can be a lot of work, but I'm glad that you're making those changes. You know, I think that sitting back and not critiquing your content or what you're making, but, you know, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, both in like this is objectively working, this is not objectively working from like is this good standpoint, but also from like, you know, you have 3 jobs. You have like to find something that works for you, or else you won't be making it anymore.
Like a function standpoint, like administrative standpoint, like absolutely. Like to begin with, the fact that like I wanted to do this podcast, I thought it was a fun idea, but it was originally, again, Jason came to me and was like, we should turn your column into a podcast. And I was like, sure thing, let's do it. And then we brainstormed ideas for it and ended up in this like, let's do Frasier, but your podcast. And I was like, I've never seen Frasier. So we kind of ran with that idea anyway, but I was like, eventually, you know, we'll get to a point where it makes a little bit more sense or like it works. But ultimately the bits and pieces that it takes to make it happen the way it is right now, not working for me. And we'll figure it out. I'm not leaving the podcast alone. I'm not done with it. I think there's a lot of fun to be had.
You're just trying to figure out how to make it work best for you.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, and why shouldn't I, man? It's my podcast. I'm not doing it for nothing. I'm like, nobody's throwing down cash to listen to my podcast. I'm not starting a Patreon yet. That's not, and even if I did, there's no bonuses. I'm so sorry. This is just it's crazy that you would do a Patreon for this one podcast that comes out bi-weekly right now and is also already free. But if you want to throw me some money, that's tight, but it's better if you use my referral code to Cardsphere and my promo code at Bonebox. And I don't even get a kickback on that. I'm just stoked about those things. But that said, you got to make it work for you, and I'm not out here making money off this podcast. It's really just like, I love magic. I love being able to do cool stuff. Like, not for nothing, man, but like, do you know how long I watched the Command Zone? I've been watching the Command Zone for like since they started, and Jimmy Wong was like our 3rd guest. And you know, Rachel Weeks I've known since we did comedy. We've done comedy for a long time together. But like, you know, she's on the Command Zone now. It was part like, hey, isn't this cool that you're doing this crazy cool thing? But also it was like, we're old pals. You know, I had Dan Sheehan, who's a buddy of mine, but I also like Sam from Ristic Studies is a pal now too. You kidding me? You kidding me? You got Gavin Verhey telling me to send him an email? Like, hell yeah, dude. Just did an episode with Jack Hughes across the pond. You know what I'm talking about? His art's beautiful. You think you're telling me I get to sit down and talk shop with a bunch of people whose stuff I admire and appreciate? That's what this is all about.
That's the upside right there.
Yeah, and so if people are out there listening and they're like, hell yeah, I just want to hear that. I'm like, dude, that rules. I'd be doing this if you didn't listen either. Like, I don't know how to tell you that. I appreciate that you like it. That fucking rips. But let me tell you something. If you weren't listening, I'd still be pretty stoked to get to do this.
And I think that's where a lot of, I think that's the type of drive that keeps stuff going.
Absolutely.
Whether or not people want it to keep going.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Is that a hint to start talking about stand-up comedy, or?
Man, you were like 6 seconds ahead of me there, buddy. I was like, all right, this is the perfect. I gotta land the plane.
I've been around a long time. I can tell the signs. I know what's happening.
You can pick up what I'm putting down.
I'm 32, but my mustache is 49. I've lived a life.
So, Mike, you've been
I'm 33. Yeah, dude, that's crazy. All right, go ahead.
You've been a stand-up comic for a pretty dang long time. What's that
buddy.
like?
I
I never leave my house. What's it like to go up in front of people and make
It's
them
my
laugh?
favorite when
or bomb,
it's
I guess.
Oh, dude, a lot of bombing, and it's not like I'm bad at it. It's just like the name of the game. You're gonna bomb
Sometimes it just doesn't
nonstop
work.
for a while. Exactly. Stand up. I used to go out every night of the week, try to pick up like 1 or 2 shows. And now there are times where I don't do shows for like a week or 2, and I'm like, I'm fine with it. I'm still writing. I know my voice enough to know what's going to work and what doesn't work. I know what I'm up to, and I know where to go to like try some stuff out. And I get work wherever, I got a weekend here or there that's like, oh, I got the spots and I'm hosting here, I'm featuring here, or like I'll do an hour here and there, So that's all well and good. I've been doing it since 2010 or 2011. I started a long time ago. And, I'm still, the thing is about stand-up is like, it's an art form and you evolve even when you think you got it all down. Right now I'm in a real big, sound cue space. I've been having a lot of fun with sound cues and lighting cues. But before it was like a lot of, acting, like, hey, here's a scenario and I'm going to do all the characters in it. I'm just being really silly boy. I love doing stand-up. It's my favorite thing to do. But it's only very rewarding when, how do I put this? When I'm not... Performing in the States rules. Performing in America, for the most part, is dope. Because if I'm coming down to America, it's either for a really good gig or... really good festival, or I'm opening for somebody whose fan base loves them, and therefore because he loves me or she loves me, then they'll love me too, right? I say he because I was thinking about somebody in particular. I get the feature for Kyle Kinane quite a bit, and that's nice, So performing in the States rules, because out there you guys are like interested in comedy to a degree that is. Like, you guys are like me at a base level. I got obsessed with comedy since I was a child. I found comedy albums. I watched all the Just for Laughs galas I can get my hands on. I watched specials, even at times that I didn't understand the material. I just was in love with the idea that this is a joke. Here's how you tell a joke. This is what works for this guy. This is what works for this guy. I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed. I wanted to be on SNL so bad. And if you told me back then that I would know people, as many people as I know personally that are on or have been on SNL as I do now, I would have been like, so I made it. I'm on the show, But no. That said, doing comedy rules. It's just in Canada, specifically Montreal, you get a lot more of audiences that are like sparsely attended shows, and they're arms are crossed as if to say, I paid my money, you better
absolutely
entertain
have to
me.
blow my socks off.
Yeah, and I'm out here being like, I'm gonna do well, but I need you to understand that as an audience member, the moment you sit down, you have signed a contract with your ass that says you're here to pay attention and to play. That's the most important part. Now, of course, it's not your fault if somebody comes up on stage and starts saying words we don't say anymore and spends all their time talking about stuff that you would rather never hear in your life. And, instead of quitting, they think that you suck as an audience. You know what I mean? So it's not your fault that kind of shit happens, and it happens often. There's a lot of garbage comedy out there, and a lot of people should quit comedy. Full stop, period. And there's a lot of people who have careers despite having no material. It's crazy to me that Kill Tony is a thing that's at all popular and spawning these guys who have less than 10 minutes going out on tours, performing an hour a night. What does that look like? It's got to be awful. Anyway, I digress. My point is, if you're in an audience, you sit down, you're watching a show, you're paying attention, you're interacting by way of you're giving me your attention, and I'm going to guide you to somewhere that feels good. And that's the fun part for me, is that I have your trust. I have these ideas that delighted me so much that I want to share them with you. And I'm working hard on making sure that every time I get this idea out, you as an audience or other audiences are going to enjoy it to the most that I can make them enjoy it. That's the most important part of doing comedy. You're sharing joy with a group of people who have never been together before and never will be together again. Isn't that like such a beautiful ephemeral quality to it?
Yeah, and I feel like that's like something that maybe like going to the movies for some huge blockbuster on opening night with a packed theater captures like 60% of, but it's still just not like all the way there. There's something I think there's something about comedy, which is maybe why it's so uniquely popular in America compared to in some other places, where it's just like everyone is there to be loud and be rowdy, and you know, you don't really have to keep it in, and everyone could just like have a lot of fun together communally.
Dude, you're
with
paying
someone being fairly vulnerable on stage, I guess.
You are paying to have access to a room where you can let loose and enjoy a thing. That's what you're doing. You're going to be entertained. And this is a philosophy of mine since, I guess, like 2015 or so. I really started angling down on like what my philosophy in comedy is. I'm not here to at all distract you from the fact that you're being entertained. I will do so much on stage that reminds you this is a performance. I have thought things through. I am here to do things that will tell you we're here as a group. Like, you will never lose yourself in a moment with me, because isn't it crazy that this is happening at all? It's like this Brechtian, if you know theater, Bertolt Brecht is a German playwright who used a bunch of multimedia, but his entire thesis was like a reminder that you are consuming art, but the reminder itself in the art is an alienating effect, because you're never letting somebody in on a moment, because you're always telling them this is art, this is performance, this is happening. And I think that that's something that resonates with me in a way. So I love doing things that, like, you know, I do this joke. I told Cal about it yesterday. I do this joke where I do a really bad joke, and then I play award ceremony music, and I go sit in the audience, and the award ceremony plays the nominees for best joke, and that dumb joke I did is one of them. So the idea is that, like, it's a really bad joke, and the audience is like, okay. And then I go, well, you see, you didn't like that, but a lot of people will. And then I play a sound cue, and then I become part of the audience. And then it's like, well, now what are we doing? We're playing with space. We're playing with, is he still performing? Yes, of course he is, but now he's in the audience. You know what I mean? So that's the interesting part to me, is that there's technically no rules in stand-up, except there are rules. Just, you know, don't be a piece of garbage, which is a very hard rule for some people to follow. In fact, more often than not, they don't follow it.
So you would say your most artful joke is the one about
You're putting that in? Yeah, I'd say it's up there. I don't think it's the artsiest one. I used to do this one where I literally had to learn how to cry acting out a scene between two chefs who love each other. And I had to cry, like literally a tear rolling down my face every time. That one's probably the most artsy fartsy one I did.
That one sounds pretty good. You've retired that one though?
Oh yeah, it's on my album. It's out there.
Okay.
Though. Yeah.
Nice.
2020's Cherubic. Hey, look at that. The anniversary plug. Check it out. There's somebody out there who is listening to it on Spotify by like the thousands, and I'm like, this was an album from 2020. I haven't plugged in a long time. Whoever it is, thank you so much.
Thanks, whoever it is. Just like one person playing it over and over again.
I don't know. It's like it gets like something like 8,000 plays after being out of the rotation from a bunch of stuff, and it's just like, hey, here's $4.
Yeah.
Hey, all right, I'll take it.
Well, you know, why not?
Yeah, the big money's in Sirius XM, though. I'll tell you that much. That's the one good thing.
Getting the big Sirius XM money from the comedy channel?
Not anymore. But we'll get there. We'll get there again. The new stuff is coming. New stuff is coming. I'll tell you one of these bits after. I think you'll like it. It's very stupid.
Perfect. Do you have any like easy jokes that I can take home with me?
Oh yeah, here, check this out. I used to work at a flower shop, And every time somebody bought flowers from me, I would bat my eyelashes at them and go, "Are these for here or to go?" See?
That's an easy one I can take home.
That's one. Yeah, I literally in the joke I say, "Isn't that an easy joke? You can remember that, right? Right here, go ahead, do it." And then I hold the microphone at the audience member I'm talking to, and then when they started, I go, "Don't do it." Call.
You don't have to do it. You just have to tell me yes.
Yeah. And then I tell them tomorrow. You know what? It's so easy to remember. You know what? Tomorrow morning, call a loved one, get them on the phone, tell them I went to this comedy show. This guy did this joke. It goes like this, and then you do it, and they'll be like, "Was it funny when he told it though?" Or, and then I'll be like, then you'll be like, "Oh, now that I think about it, he was more charming than funny. He did tell this joke about." Goes like this: 2, 3, 4. You know, that's how the bit literally goes. You know, but the flower shop line, it's quick enough. It's dumb.
It's fun.
Yeah. The thing is, a lot of my jokes are like, I have an idea, and now you have it. Mm-hmm. That's how my jokes work. I have another one, which is, do you think people would hold in their farts more if instead of a fart sound, your butt just told a secret about you instead? And that gets a laugh. Not really much of a joke. It's me asking a question. Me being sincere.
Well, it's about farts, so it's automatically funny.
Which is hilarious. That's fair. I'm not
exactly. That's the secret.
Hell yeah.
Well, Mike, we'll talk a little bit more about stand-up comedy later. It's a tag for later. But I wanted to circle back around to Magic really quick.
Yeah, hit me.
So I know you're someone who thinks about Magic a lot. You're someone who's been making stuff about and around and about the community of Magic a lot. I think that a lot of people who do that, myself included, can get like a little jaded. There's so many sets, all that kind of stuff. How do you feel about Magic right now?
I feel pretty good about it right now. Like, the thing is, yes, there's a lot of sets. Yes, Universes Beyond is a lot of stuff. Like, am I stoked about Universes Beyond Final Fantasy? I could not care less about Final Fantasy. It's not my game.
That was going to go one of two ways. You were going to be like, yes, I have played every single game 10 times. You're going to be like, I do not care.
I could not care less. What I do love knowing is that there are new cards coming. I love the game. And so, sometimes I don't really care how the cards look unless it's like an art style that I can't stand. Like, I'm not a fan of the anime art stuff. Sorry.
No, me
not
either.
My thing. Not at all my thing.
It was like cute when they did it once. And it was like, oh, cool, a different art style. Much like they have done a great many times now for special treatments. And now it's like every third set. And that's
I opened a pack of Wilds of Eldraine and cracked a Parallel Lives, but it was the anime art one that also looked like it was like anime art, but also AI. And I was like, I hate this. But it's Parallel Lives, a card that a card that I'd be excited to pull otherwise, even in the the alt frame, like that they did for that bonus sheet. But no, I got this anime one and I'm looking at it like, bah, you know what I mean? It's not the best feeling for me. But I will say, I didn't care for the vibe of Bloomborough, but there were cool, sick cards in that.
Wow. I think you may be the first person I've ever talked to that wasn't like emphatically for the vibe of Bloomborough.
You prepare to censor a bunch of stuff. I fucking hated Bloomborough. Bloomborough can suck on my fat juice. Bloomborough, it forever. Fucking hated Bloomborough, aesthetically speaking. However, there are some cards that are pretty great. There's a lot of interesting mechanics. There's like the talents are really freaking sick. A couple of the legends are really interesting. Bloomborough as a set, as a card file, pretty sweet. Not mad at that. Bloomborough, aesthetically speaking, didn't care for it. Not my thing. Yes, there are some beautiful pieces of art. Are you telling me that Stargaze came out of Bloomborough and it's a beautiful piece? Yes, absolutely. But it's not my favorite set. Duskmourn, way more my speed. You're talking about those fears, the nightmares that are real nightmares? Sign me up, baby. I'm so into it. And I think what happened lately is like, the discourse about Universes Beyond being half of what we're about to get for the rest of time now is kind of exhausting. I'm not mad at Universes Beyond. Sure, there's properties I don't care about. As long as like we can get our hands on some cards that are fun to work with, that's awesome. I would like in-universe versions. Like, you know, I was one of those suckers who bought the Secret Lair for Stranger Things despite hating Stranger Things because
all that time ago.
Dude, I hated I don't care about Stranger Things, but I loved Mike. I loved Will. I thought the land was sick. I thought the monster guy was pretty good. The Mind Flayer thing. You know, there's some really interesting card designs, and I thought, well, they did this with Walking Dead, mechanically unique. I'm gonna get my hands on this Secret Lair, and then they printed them Universes Within, and I thought, ooh, that's beautiful. You're telling me that this is no longer Rick from The Walking Dead, but rather it's Graymond from like an Avacyn's devoted priest or whatever. That's awesome. Give me more lore inside. Like, does this mean that we're gonna get another Graymond card down the line? You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome. So that's happening less, and I'm less interested in the way the cards are gonna come out that way. And I hope that eventually we get to a point that maybe there's more Universes Within. However, Foundations has been a home run. What's up,
Mike? Before we talk about Foundations, I have terrible news for you.
What's up?
About some of the news we talk about on the first half of this podcast episode.
Give me.
Universes Within is on thin ice right now.
Yeah, I know.
That's it. So
I'm still hopeful.
I just had to get that in there. I know. I love Universe Within stuff. I think it's kind of sick.
The thing is, Magic has been like, hey, Storm scale. Storm is the name of the scale. We're never doing Storm again. Ral in Bloomborough has Storm on it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It gives your stuff Storm. It's never over. I think that Universes Within isn't dead. I think that there's something to it. I think that there might be enough interest in like some of the cards that, you know, maybe the character isn't beloved, or like they don't have the rights to it, and maybe there's like a Universes Within thing, or maybe one day, you know, they do like an Innistrad block revisit or whatever, and it turns out that Storm from Marvel's Secret Lair is perfect for the set, and they're like, well, we can't just print Storm into Innistrad. It's like, yeah, but you can print friggin', I don't know, maybe Greymon lost his mind. I'm picking Greymon because it's the only character name I can think of. But you know my point.
Yep. And I think,
yeah,
I would guess that the kicker is that we're still going to get a decent amount of Universes Within. They just have to like figure out where they're going to put it, how they're going to do it. I have a feeling we're going to get it slower than we might have liked otherwise. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be only for things that are mechanically unique Secret Lairs.
Yes, that is.
There's
mechanically
no way
unique cards that are only available.
Yeah.
In that kind of,
Which,
that is the stuff they have said they would like to get out.
Yes. So that to me, I'm fine with. Like, you know, again, if in the Marvel set, the Secret Lair versions of like Storm and Black Panther are in the regular set, just different treatments, hey, that's fine by me. I'm not mad at that. Great. They're available. Cool. But it is kind of like, you know, I don't know, man. The dinosaurs that they were in like low supply from Ixalan, the Jurassic Park stuff, and not everybody's like eager to see Samuel L. Jackson on a card because it breaks whatever immersion that they have, because it's like a photorealistic version of it, you know. So like there's that. But I'll say the response to the latest set right now, as of recording, Foundations, the response for Foundations, dude, has been mind-blowingly positive. The Magic community can be so negative about the most awesome stuff. Like online, people will get mad about, honestly, some things that are like so sick and so cool, and yet Foundations, not a peep. People are like, I'm kind of impressed with this core set. It's got really interesting new cards. The Jumpstart Legends are interesting and cool. My only gripe is that they don't have all versions of like the Jumpstart Legends, because they are all the anime versions.
They're
but like
all
other
the
than
anime
that,
versions. Yep.
Some really cool designs are coming out of this base set that's going to be legal and standard for 5 years. That gives us stuff like Llanowar Elves to play with in standard for 5 years, so that they can focus on building on that instead of having to fill like some sets like down the line, like, oh, Dominaria United's going to be like our anchor set. Ooh, better get some vegetables in this. It's like, no, maybe we can get real freaky with this stuff later. And that means I think that like you'll have a little bit more flavorful stuff coming up, and like Foundations just opens a lot of doors while also servicing the people who are like, I love Magic for Magic. Okay, here's a ton of throwbacks that are now legal in formats that they were not legal in before. Here's a bunch of different treatments for cards that are iconic. Here's a card that you haven't thought about in a very long time, but now has new contextual like applications that are interesting and honestly quite powerful. And then also, guess what? Platinum Angel, we made it white.
It's new. It's new and improved Platinum Angel.
But also, get this. Now every time you cast an instant sorcery, if you have this enchantment, make a dragon. Isn't that every spell slinger's dream? You know what I mean? There's something for so many people. That cat that keeps coming back from the graveyard because it's got 9 lives. You know?
Cauldron Familiar?
Not Cauldron Familiar.
No, a different one? There's a
9 lives
cat.
Familiar. Yeah, dog.
Wow, man,
the rare from Foundations. It's really fun. The enchantment that's basically Luminous Broodmoth, but for turns your stuff into angels. I just built a Shield Gengar deck. You think I'm not the most excited for that enchantment? Valkyrie's Call or whatever. Point is, there's a lot to be excited about with Foundations, and I watched a pre-release that Loading Ready Run does every set, and I'm watching Graham win with Overrun. A former rare, now uncommon, in Foundations is just, I can't believe it. It's in the set, and it feels like I'm a kid again. Like Ben Wheeler said, I'm casting like a 3/3 flyer for 4, and I'm like, yeah, that's sick, that's good. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude, remember that stuff? Remember when spending 7 mana wasn't like an immediate I win the game, but you got something goofy and big that was hard to deal with? You remember Thorn Elemental? In 7th edition, like the pre-con decks, you'd get the green one, you had Ancient Silverback and Thorn Elemental, and you're like, man, these things can't be beat. And then you played like one black deck. Yeah. You know, that's like, there's so much good stuff coming. Like, I think there's like it's a bit of like a love letter to the game, in a way that like them reprinting Alpha with the 30th anniversary thing wasn't. I think they nailed Foundations, and I think that's so cool, man. It rules. It honestly rules. People were gushing about it. It feels like old times, but also like it's new to a bunch of players who like don't know that Llanowar Elves being a standard is a huge deal. Like, that's crazy. It's so fun. And it reminds me that like Magic, at its core, pun not intended, it is a core set. Magic at its core is still Magic. It's still the game that I love. It's still the story I love. And I don't know if you watched or if you read or listened to the Duskmourn story at all. Those were great. They've been doing well with the stories.
I have not checked. I have been a little really checked out with the story as of late.
I've been having fun with it, man. I wasn't always into it. I read the books when I was a kid and didn't understand much, but then, you know, every now and then I'll deep dive on lore on one character, or like when they did these stories for Dominaria United, and Dan Sheehan, who I mentioned earlier, wrote that Squee story. I was like delighted by it, and I was like, well, Shieldred's got Karn now, you know. I'm like freaking out. Venture's back, you know. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, and it's just so exciting. And I never thought myself to be like a fantasy guy, because I don't care for Lord of the Rings. I don't like Star Wars. I'm not Final Fantasy. Like, I'm not a fan. I don't like any of it. But here I am like, oh, I want to know. I want to know all of it. Tell me everything, you know? It's exciting. I just feel like we don't get such a non-polarizing set every that now and then.
This feels like the first one in a very long time.
Truly, that people are stoked about. Like, that's so nice. Can't we do this more often? You know? What did people hate about Duskmourn? I don't like seeing people in sneakers and Magic. It's like, it's shoes, dude. Let it go. like I don't know, man. Oh, I hate the Omen Pass. I was like, yeah, me too. I miss Planeswalkers, but like, look at Rakdos has a cowboy hat.
Yeah, you don't like that? Then you don't like America.
Yeehaw.
I don't like America very much right now. But that's
Especially today.
Yeah, it's a very today.
Where are the 20 million votes? Anyway, go on. How are you going to edit this? This seems like it's going to be a nightmare. This is going to be a 4-hour episode.
Don't worry, Mike. Well, the good news, Mike, is like all things, that should happen more often.
Damn.
I think it's time for us to bring this one to a close.
Damn.
I know.
Here we go.
Because we are already running long.
Oh,
So
no.
I will ask you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Hell yeah. Be nice to each other. Have direct conversations without, being mindful of people's feelings too, but like don't forget to stand for yourself. And follow me online. I'm at Mike Carosa, MikeCarrozza on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. That's my website too, MikeCarosa.com. Linktree /Mike Carosa. You can follow me at Am I the Bowlcast on Twitter. Check out Am I the Bowlcast. Check out my podcast, We Didn't Get a Rose. We very sporadically release episodes about rom-coms. Check out my album, Cherubic. Come see me do a stand-up if you're ever in Montreal or if I'm visiting your city. All that good stuff. Keep an eye on things. Do that thing. And also, don't forget, support the pals. I don't know what you're doing. I know that every episode ends with follow us here, there, and that. Just if you're really interested in what people are doing, tell them. Don't forget that part. You know what I mean? It's nice. It's nice to, if you like the Herald's Horn, drop them a line, send a little DM. Be like, I really like the show. I really like it. It feels good.
It does feel good.
And you know what else? Okay, I'm talking a lot, but I know.
That's what I bring you here for. I said, man, I'm kind of tired today. I need a guest that's going to talk a lot.
Yeah, that's me. I'm forever. Something I've been trying to tell myself, because I used to do this automatically, but I've fallen out of it, and I'm kind of pushing myself to do it more again. Message people when you think of them. Do you know how nice it is to get a message out of the blue being like, thinking of you, I saw this funny video, it made me think of you. I hope you're having a good day. Let people know that their light lives in other parts of the world. Let people know that their vibrations are felt elsewhere. It makes winter, it makes the blues feel a lot less heavy. And especially with the situation that's unfolding in the United States of America, just be kind to each other in a way that, like, comes from the heart. If I'm thinking of Cal, I'm sending you a text, buddy. I'm not going to shy from that. But it's nice, I got a message from a buddy last week being like, here's a reference to an inside joke from a couple months ago that I just thought of, and that made me think of you. And that made my night. I'm not even kidding. It really did. I was having a bad night at the cleanup after my parents' dog, who we were watching, who made a mess in the living room. And I was just not having a good time. I checked my phone, and it just says, hot dogs at night. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude.
This made my night.
This made my night. Yeah. It made my night. So do that more. Be good to each other.
Thank you, Mike, for that important reminder. I do have one more question for you.
What's that?
But that'll be for the patrons at home.
Damn.
I'm going to ask you some really generic questions or two about what some of your favorite stand-up specials are.
Oh my God. Should I change shirt for this?
No.
I'm going to open a window, though, because I'm really hot.
All right. Mike, thank you for coming on to the Herald's Horn. I'll have to have you back. Goodbye.
Wait. Okay, bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn is hosted, edited, and produced by me, Cal Jones. The co-hosts are Emma Partlow, Lexi, better known as Black Girl Mage, and Dan, better known as Moderately Anonymous MTG. All of our info lives in the podcast description. If you want to reach out to me, whether with feedback, you want to give me money, or you just want to send a letter to the editor, hit up editorial@heraldshorn.com. Thanks again for listening to the Herald's Horn. We are having so much fun creating it. See you in 2 weeks.
You got to tell me when we're going for real, because I'll stop saying things like and how I think the president should.